Chapter 8. About the taking of Enoch to the third heaven. And those men took me from there, and they brought me up to the third heaven, and set me down there. Then I looked downward, and I saw paradise. And that place is inconceivably pleasant. And I saw the trees in full flower, and their fruits were ripe and pleasant smelling, with every food and yield, and giving off profusely a pleasant fragrance. And in the midst of them was the tree of life, at that place where the Lord takes a rest when he goes into paradise. And that tree is indescribable for pleasantness and fine fragrance, and more beautiful than any other created thing that exists. And from every direction it has an appearance which is good-looking and crimson, and with the form of fire. And it covers the whole of paradise, and it has something of every orchard tree and of every fruit. And its roots is in paradise, at the exit that leads to the earth. And paradise is in between the corruptible and the incorruptible. And two streams come forth, one a source of honey and milk, and a source which produces oil and wine. And it is divided into 4 parts, and they go around with a quiet movement. And they come out into the paradise of Eden, between the corruptible and the incorruptible. And from there they pass along and divide into 40 parts, and it proceeds in descent along the earth. And they have a revolution in their cycle, just like the other atmospheric elements. And there is no unfruitful tree there, and every tree is well fruited, and every place is blessed. And there are 300 angels, very bright, who look after paradise, and with never-ceasing voice and pleasant singing, they worship the Lord every day and hour. And I said, "How very pleasant is this place?" And those men said to me, Chapter 9. The revelation to Enoch of the place of those who are righteous and kind. And those men said to me, "This place, Enoch, has been prepared for the righteous, who suffer every kind of calamity in their life, and who afflict their souls, and who avert their eyes from injustice, and who carry out righteous judgment, and who give bread to the hungry, and who cover the naked with clothing, and who lift up the fallen, and who help the injured and the orphans, and who walk without a defect before the face of the Lord, and who worship him only. Even for them, this place has been prepared as an eternal inheritance." Chapter 10. Here they showed Enoch the frightful place and various tortures. And those men carried me to the northern region, and they showed me there a very frightful place. And all kinds of torture and torment are in that place, cruel darkness and lightless gloom, and there is no light there. And a black fire blazes up perpetually, with a river of fire that comes out over the whole place. Fire here, freezing ice there, and it dries up and it freezes. And very cruel places of detention, and dark and merciless angels, carrying instruments of atrocities, torturing without pity. And I said, "Whoa, how very frightful is this place! And those men said to me, "This place, Enoch, has been prepared for those who do not glorify God, who practice on the earth the sin which is against nature, which is child corruption in the anus, in the manner of Sodom, of witchcraft, enchantments, divinations, trafficking with demons, who boast about their evil deeds, stealing and lying and insulting, coveting, resentment, fornication, murder, and who steal the souls of men secretly, seizing the poor by the throat, taking away their possessions, enriching themselves from the possessions of others, defrauding them, who when they are able to provide sustenance, bring about the death of the hungry by starvation. And when they are able to provide clothing, take away the last garment of the naked, who do not acknowledge their Creator, but bow down to idols which have no souls, which can neither see nor hear, vain gods, constructing images and bowing down to vile things made by hands. For all these, this place has been prepared as an eternal reward. Chapter 11. Here they took Enoch to the fourth heaven, where the solar and lunar tracks are. And those men took me, and they carried me up to the fourth heaven. And they showed me there all the movements and sequences, and all the rays of solar and lunar light. And I measured their movements, and I compared their light. And I saw that the sun has a light 7 times greater than the moon. And I saw his circle and his wheels on which he always goes, going past always like the wind, with quite marvelous speed. And his coming and his return give him no rest, day and night. And 4 great stars, each star having 1,000 stars under it, on the right-hand side of the sun's chariot, and 4 on the left-hand side, each one having 1,000 stars under it. Altogether 8,000, going with the sun perpetually. And 150,000 angels accompany him in the daytime, and at night 1,000. And 100 angels go in front of the sun's chariot, 6-winged and flaming fire. And the sun blazes up and sets the 100 angels on fire. Chapter 12. About the very wonderful solar elements. And I looked and saw flying spirits, the solar elements, called phoenixes and chalkidras, strange and wonderful. For their form was that of a lion, their tail and their feet, and their head that of a crocodile. Their appearance was multicolored like a rainbow. Their size was 900 measures. Their wings were those of angels, but they have 12 wings each. They accompany and run with the sun, carrying heat and dew, and whatever is commanded them from God. Thus he goes through a cycle, and he goes down, and he rises up across the sky and beneath the earth with the light of his rays. And he was there on the track unceasingly. Chapter 13. The angels picked Enoch up and set him down in the east at the solar gates. And those men carried me away to the east of that heaven, and they showed me the solar gates through which the sun comes out, according to the appointment of the seasons and according to the phases of the moon, for the entire year, and according to the numbers of the horologe, day and night. And I saw 6 open gates, each gate having 61 stadia and a quarter of a stadium. And I measured carefully, and I figured out their size to be so much, through which the sun comes out and goes off to the west. And it becomes even and goes through all the months. And the first gate he comes out for 42 days, the second 35 days, the third 35 days, the fourth 35 days, the fifth 35 days, the sixth 42 days. And then once more he does an about turn and goes back the other way from the 6th gate, according to the round of the seasons. And he goes in through the 5th gate 35 days, the 4th 35 days, the 3rd 35 days, the 2nd 35 days. And so the days of the whole year are completed, according to the cycle of the 4 seasons. Chapter 14. They carried Enoch to the west. And then those men carried me away to the west of the heaven, and they showed me 6 large open gates, corresponding to the circuit of the eastern gates. Opposite them, where the sun sets according to the number of the days, 365 and a quarter. Thus he goes back once again to the eastern gates under the earth. And when he goes out from the western gates, he takes off his light, the splendor, which is his radiance. And 400 angels take his crown and carry it to the Lord. For since his shining crown is with God, with 400 angels guarding it, the sun turns his chariot around and goes back under the earth on wheels, without the great light, which is his great radiance and ornament. And he remains for 7 great hours in the night, and the chariot spends half its time under the earth. And when he comes to the eastern approaches, in the 8th hour of the night, the angels, the 400 angels, bring back the crown and crown him. And his brightness and the shining of his crown are seen before sunrise, and the sun blazes out more than fire does. Chapter 15. The solar elements, the phoenixes, and the chalkidras burst into song. And then the solar elements, called phoenixes and chalkidras, burst into song. That is why every bird flaps its wings, rejoicing at the giver of light. And they burst into song at the Lord's command. The light giver is coming to give radiance to the whole world. And the morning watch appears, which is the sun's rays. And the sun comes out over the face of the earth and retrieves his radiance, to give light to all the face of the earth. And they showed me this calculation of the sun's movement and the gates by which he goes in and goes out. For these are the great gates which God created to be an annual horologe. This is why the sun has the greater heat, and the cycle for him goes on for 28 years, and begins once more from the start. Chapter 16. They picked Enoch up and placed him once more in the east at the orbit of the moon. And another calculation those men showed me, that of the moon, and all the movements and phases, and 12 big gates, crowned from the west to the east, through which the moon goes in and goes out, in accordance with the regular seasons. She goes in by the first western gate in place of the sun. By the first gate for 31 days exactly, the second for 35 days exactly, the third for 30 days exactly, the fourth for 30 days exactly, the fifth for 31 days extraordinarily exactly, the sixth for 31 days exactly, the seventh for 30 days exactly, the eighth for 31 days exactly, the ninth for 31/35 days accurately, the 10th for 30 days exactly, the 11th for 31 days exactly, the 12th for 22 and 28 days exactly. Thus, likewise, by the western gates in accordance with the cycle, and in accordance with the number of the eastern gates. And thus she goes, and completes the solar year, 365 and 1/2 of 1 day. But the lunar year has 354, making 12 months, calculated in accordance with 29 days. And it lacks 12 days of the solar cycle, which are the lunar epochs for each year. Also, the great cycle contains 532 years. It passes by the quarters for 3 years, and the fourth completes it exactly. For this reason, they are taken away outside heaven for 3 years, and they are not added to the number of the days, because these ones change the seasons of the year. 2 new moons in augmentation, 2 others in diminution. And when the western gates are completed, she turns around and goes to the eastern ones with her light. Thus she goes, day and night, in accordance with the heavenly cycles, lower than all the cycles, swifter than the heavenly winds, and spirits and elements and flying angels, with 6 wings to each angel. And the moon has a 7-fold intercalation, and a period of revolution of 19 years. And she begins once again from the start. Chapter 17. About the angelic songs which it is not possible to describe. In the middle of the heaven I saw armed troops, worshiping the Lord with timpani and pipes and unceasing voices, and pleasant voices and pleasant and unceasing, and various songs which it is impossible to describe. And every mind would be quite astonished. So marvelous and wonderful is the singing of these angels, and I was delighted listening to them.